The story begins in a chaotic world where monsters like a red dragon destroy everything. These creatures are enemies of humanity, hunting the innocent and seeking to devour civilization. And to fight against these beasts, there are only two paths a warrior can follow. One of them is the path of the mage, who harnesses the mana in the atmosphere to use magic. This way, they can manifest supernatural miracles to face these monsters. Next, the caster launches several blades of energy toward the large flying reptile. The creature then roars in fury upon seeing the attacks coming its way and braces for the worst. But the blades of light hit the target dead on, causing a powerful explosion of energy. Seeing the scene, a young mage laments because it seems the attack had no effect on the beast. With that, the enormous dragon dives furiously toward a warrior who is on the ground. Then, the other path is revealed, that of the swordsman, who refines their body to use fighting techniques. However, when trying to strike the creature, the warrior's blade shatters against its hard scales. The fighter gets frustrated because they say a person can only choose one of these paths. Seizing the opportunity, the winged monster prepares a powerful fire attack straight from its mouth. At that moment, a giant fireball is unleashed, creating a devastating explosion on the spot. The boy and the combatant are terrified because when you choose one path, you can be crushed. Suddenly, a new adventurer appears, falling from the skies to change the course of this battle. He wields a sword, and several other warriors appear behind him, ready to fight. Without wasting any time, the mysterious young man leaps toward the dragon's chest with his weapon in hand. The giant beast is surprised by the human's courage, and its eye begins to glow. The swordsman's reflection shines in the dragon's eye, showing that the creature already has its eye on him. Even with the beast's shadow covering everything, our hero continues his attack without hesitation. The other warriors are shocked by the courage and skill of the newcomer. He then lands with an imposing aura, showing that he has mastered his path to become a hero. This man is revealed to be Oscar, the legendary warrior known as the Sword Saint. After the battle, the survivors thank Oscar and are surprised that he came all the way there. Calmly, the Sword Saint says he will leave the rest of the work to them. The group is left confused. The hero simply turns to leave the area. As Oscar walks away, a family hugs each other, relieved to have survived the monster's attack. We see a thought of his where he says he chose the path of the swordsman, and not that of magic. In a memory, a man shows a magic trick to a little girl while Oscar watches. The magic creates several bright and colorful lights that enchant everyone nearby. Despite being a powerful swordsman, Oscar seems fascinated by the beauty of that magic. He knows he has become someone admired by many people because of his strength and fame. The little girl is amazed by the magical lights dancing in the air right in front of her. And right beside her, a little boy who looks a lot like Oscar also smiles, charmed by the scene. He reveals that he still feels the same desire to use magic that he had when he was just a child. A new memory shows a young Oscar training with a wooden sword in the icy mountains. The boy swung his sword with all his strength and determination to become stronger and stronger. Two men watched the young boy's tough training as he pushed himself alone in the middle of nowhere. Two apprentices observe their master's training, and one of them wonders if he trains every day. The young man replies that he never misses a day and that the place used to be just a flat field. He continues, saying the training was so intense that the ground sank and formed that hole. Meanwhile, our hero continues his training with the wooden sword without stopping. The female apprentice is completely shocked to hear about her master's dedication and absurd strength. At that moment, her friend points to a letter the girl is holding, and she remembers. With that, the girl quickly stands up and calls out to her master, who is focused on his training. She runs toward him, shouting that an important letter has arrived from the imperial capital. Oscar takes the paper, and after reading it, the apprentice asks with concern if the news is bad. The Sword Saint smiles and says it's a medal for slaying the dragon, but complains about the summons. The girl laughs, saying that only he would complain about such an honor and that he could get a high-ranking position. But Oscar says he's tired of politics and prefers to train in a quiet place like this. Seeing his dedication, the apprentice comments that her master must really love the sword a lot. Upon hearing his student's comment, the swordsman becomes thoughtful for a moment before speaking. With a slight smile, he says it's not like he particularly likes the sword. He then reveals that he only chose this path because his father, who is a master, told him to. The young woman is left completely speechless by her instructor's unexpected revelation. The hero confirms that he did not choose to follow the swordsman's path of his own free will. His student says she envies him because the master was born with a natural talent for the sword. She vents that she joined the academy because she wanted to but thinks she has no talent and considers becoming a mage. It is explained that mages and swordsmen use opposing powers that flow through circuits in the body. If a different energy is forced into a circuit, the user's body simply collapses. Because of this, the young woman understands that choosing between being a warrior or a mage defines your entire life. Seeing her sadness, the master places a hand on her shoulder to try and calm her down a bit. He tells her not to worry and to just swing the sword, as that's how he got to where he is. The girl is motivated by her master's words and agrees with determination. Later that night, the Sword Saint is lying in his bed, completely lost in thought. He thinks he gave his student good advice, but he can't follow it himself. Her words about his natural talent for the sword continue to echo in his mind. Looking at his own hand, he wonders what his true talent for magic might have been. He then scoffs at his own advice to just swing the sword to solve everything. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he senses a strange presence outside. At that exact moment, a huge explosion occurs, destroying a large part of his house. The cabin is in flames, and a group of hooded figures watches the destruction. The mysterious individuals appear to be mages, and one of them points a staff at the house. One of the mages asks if they got him, but the other warns not to let their guard down against him. To everyone's surprise, the hero leaps from the flames without a single scratch. Oscar lands and realizes his enemies are mages and seem to be extremely powerful. He then analyzes the group of casters, wondering who their leader might be. In response, the mages prepare to attack and conjure fire magic in their hands. With a serious and determined look, the Sword Saint prepares for the coming fight. He then agilely dodges several beams of energy that are launched in his direction. In a swift move, the hero advances and strikes one of the hooded mages with his sword. But suddenly, something unexpected happens, and the swordsman's eyes go wide with shock. The enemies reveal they've captured his student and threaten to harm her if he doesn't surrender. The young apprentice is gagged and completely terrified by the life or death situation. The master asks what their goal is, and the group's leader replies that they want the hero's life. Oscar says he doesn't remember living in a way that would make people hate him so much. With a wicked smile, the mage says it's obvious the swordsman wouldn't remember anything. He continues, saying they cannot forgive someone who has so much talent for both the sword and magic. Our protagonist is confused and wonders what on earth they are talking about. The leader says he doesn't need to understand, because he's about to be defeated anyway. Despite the complicated situation, the Sword Saint remains calm and analyzes his opponents. His student shouts for him not to worry because she was prepared for this from the beginning. Upon hearing his apprentice's brave words, the master's gaze fills with determination. He understands the girl's message and prepares to fight with his sword in hand once again. The mage is surprised but then says that our hero is absolutely right in his decision. With a smile, the master says their plan has failed and he won't let them underestimate her. The group's leader is shocked and furious upon realizing what has really happened. The enormous ice spears now float in the air, pointed at the Sword Saint. The ice spears fly at high speed toward our hero, who is standing still. Then, a huge cloud of dust and smoke rises from the site of the attack's impact. One of the hooded mages stands there, observing the result of the powerful ice magic. Their leader smiles with satisfaction but is soon shocked by what he sees and says it can't be. He can't believe the hero used his own body to save his student and still eliminated a mage. The swordsman is standing, badly injured with ice spears embedded in his body, without complaining. The apprentice runs desperately as the enemies leave, saying their objective has been accomplished. They bid farewell to the Sword Saint with his wasted magical talent and disappear from there. The young woman reaches her master and asks why he sacrificed himself like that for her. Even covered in injuries, he smiles and says he's a swordsman too, after all. His apprentice cries desperately upon hearing his words and understanding the dangerous situation. The hero then collapses in the girl's arms, who blames herself for everything that happened to him. She continues to cry heavily, unable to accept what is happening in front of her. Almost out of strength, the swordsman looks at his student with a look of deep sorrow and sadness. In his thoughts, he regrets that if he were a mage, he could have handled everything differently. His gaze fills with regret for not having followed the path he truly wanted. He admits to himself that all this time, he just wanted to be able to use real magic. That's why he kept training with the sword to ignore the truth and took pride in the honors. But even so, nothing compares to the thrill he felt when he saw magic for the first time. His hand reaches toward the sky as if trying to grasp his distant, true dream. Suddenly, he finds himself in a sunlit forest and reaches his hand toward the sunlight. The hero gets up confused because he is certain he should have passed on that time. Looking around, the young man recognizes the place, and a feeling of nostalgia suddenly washes over him. He then realizes he's in his old home village, a place he hadn't seen in a long time. His mind flashes back to the scene of his final moments, and he can't believe he survived. As he gets up, the young man feels something on his belt and wonders what it could be. His expression changes to one of total surprise when he sees what he has found there with him. He is holding 2 sealed letters, which are invitations to the 2 great academies of the kingdom. At 15, every young person receives invitations to the Academy of Magic and the Academy of Swords. Crouching down, he holds one of the letters and sees a reflection of his younger self in front of him. With this, he wonders if it's possible that he has truly returned to the past. The young man realizes he has returned to the age of 14, before he became a famous swordsman. At that moment, an imposing figure approaches from behind the young Oscar, who is on the ground. A stern voice asks what he is doing there and calls him by name with authority. The boy turns around, startled, and stammers when he sees that the person there is his late father. He understands that if he has returned to the past, then his father is still alive and well in front of him. The man then scolds him, saying he has become arrogant and neglected his training. Young Oscar just lowers his head, unable to respond to his father's accusations. He thinks that it wasn't arrogance, but rather the fear of revealing his dream of using magic. His father was a sword master who supervised the training of many disciples. As the son of a sword master, it was natural for Oscar to begin learning the way of the blade. At first, his father praised him for his improvements, but everything changed one day. The boy ran excitedly to tell him about the magic he had seen, but the reaction was not what he expected. With a furious look, the man says that magic is a technique used only by the weak. He then declares that as his son, the boy was destined to wield the sword and nothing else. From that day on, the young man trained non-stop so he wouldn't be abandoned by his father, but now, he thinks he's had enough of having a tragic end like the one he lived before. In this new life, he decides he will follow the path he truly wishes to walk. His father then repeats the question, wanting to know why his son had been neglecting his training. With a confident look, the young man replies that he has already spent a lifetime facing the sword. The sword master is surprised by his son's unexpected answer and stares at him. Suddenly, a golden aura explodes from him, and several energy swords appear around him. The pressure of that powerful aura begins to crush everything and everyone nearby. The other disciples watching the scene are thrown back by the force of the energy. However, our hero remains standing in the middle of it all, unshaken by the pressure. One of the students is shocked, wondering how the boy can remain so calm. The young man faces his father with a serene gaze and a confidence he never had before. The sword master remains silent, observing his son with a surprised expression. With a slight smile, he says it seems the young man wasn't just fooling around. Hearing this, our protagonist just calmly adjusts the collar of his shirt. The father says that if he keeps this up, one day he might be able to entrust his guild to his son. Seeing the scene, the other disciples have expressions of pure envy and anger. With a satisfied smile, the sword master turns and walks away, leaving the boy behind. Our hero is left pensive, looking at his father with a strange feeling in his heart. Suddenly, someone grabs him from behind very aggressively and without any warning. It was two guys who say they were looking forward to the academy break just to see him. One of them, with a mocking smile, offers to give young Oscar a lesson in swordplay. Our protagonist then remembers that these guys were also in his past life. They were companions with whom he trained a lot at his own father's request. But everything changed when they entered the academy and awakened their sword energy. With that, they started using him to take out all their pent-up frustrations. Back in the present, the two prepare for the duel with their wooden swords in hand. The bully tells him to hurry up and shows off his purple energy aura around the blade. The presence of this aura creates a power difference that skill alone cannot overcome. But instead of fighting, our hero turns and starts walking toward a nearby river. With a smirk, he thanks them for everything they've done for him up to that point. His rival is shocked and completely confused by the young man's words and unexpected attitude. In a swift move, our protagonist throws his wooden sword into the river. Seeing this, the other two start laughing and call him a coward for running from the fight. The bully becomes furious and calls him a disgrace to swordsman as he runs to attack. He then stands still with a firm and determined posture, ready to follow his new path in life. Looking back with a smile, he says he will no longer swing a sword because he is going to be a mage. His rival doesn't care and charges forward, saying he won't go easy on him just because he's unarmed. But our hero remains calm, and with his blue eyes, he analyzes his opponent's attack. He notices that the bully is using his sword energy to strengthen his own body. The young man's strike is powerful and cracks the ground, but our protagonist doesn't move an inch. With that, he says that's not enough and the blade should be an extension of the body, not just a tool. The rival is furious with the young man's advice and grinds his teeth in pure rage and frustration. He yells not to be underestimated and attacks again, but Oscar dodges with impressive agility. As he dodges, he thinks that he's fallen into the habit of fighting, as if he were with his former disciple. The opponent becomes desperate, shouting and wondering why he can't land a single blow. Seeing an opening, our hero moves in quickly to end the fight once and for all. With an open palm, he pushes the bully's face to unbalance him in combat. The boy falls to the ground, completely defeated, and the fight finally comes to an end. Lying on the grass, the rival yells, cursing the young man for humiliating him that way. Our hero approaches and stares at the defeated boy with a serious and intimidating look. The bully wonders why he would throw away his advantage against an unarmed opponent. As the boy's friends drag him away, our protagonist just watches the scene. He thinks that this should be enough to keep the bully away from him for a good while. Then he remembers that in his past life, his father forcibly awakened his sword energy. He decides that to avoid repeating the same mistake from the past, he will master magic first. With that in mind, the young man walks alone along a forest path in search of a place. The young man gets a little nervous and wipes his sweat, hoping no one finds him. He then finds an isolated spot near a large rock where no one will be able to see him. A memory comes to his mind where he asked a mage how to use magic. The hero said he understood swordsmen but always wondered how mages fought. The mage listened attentively to the powerful sword saint's question in front of her. At that time, the woman was sitting in a beautiful garden, tending to her colorful flowers. Then, the caster picks up a watering can that was beside her to show him something. She explains that for mages, magic is very similar to using a watering can to nourish plants. The swordsman is confused by the comparison and repeats the word, watering can, not understanding at all. She says that mana circulates through the body, and when it is released into reality, a new spell is activated. Back in the present, our protagonist sits on a rock to begin meditating. He remembers the mage explaining that mana fills the air all around us, all the time. With that, the young man concentrates fully to try and feel the energy in the air. With his eyes closed, he thinks that if he can perceive the mana, he can use it in his circuits. A swordsman uses all their senses to the limit, and even without being a saint, he still has them. So he concentrates as much as possible, using all the experience from his past life. Suddenly he can feel the flow of mana in the birds, fish, and even in the water. The young man opens his eyes and particles of light sparkle in them, showing that he has succeeded. Mana flows around him in bands of purple light as the young man perceives the magical energy. With wide eyes, he is amazed by the new sensation running through his body. He celebrates excitedly for having succeeded, and now he just needs to pull the mana into his circuits. But right after, the young man wonders how exactly he is supposed to do such a thing. Suddenly he feels something strange, and his attention is drawn to a specific spot in the forest. Without warning, an object flies by at high speed right next to him, startling him. He then realizes there's something strange about this place, and decides to investigate what's happening. With that, the young man walks slowly toward the strange presence he felt earlier in the woods. He steps on a kind of magical web on the ground and realizes it's a protective trap. He finds it all very strange because he can't sense the presence of any living being nearby. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and a stone hand emerges with full force to attack him by surprise. After the dust settles, he wonders what that is and finds himself facing a huge stone golem. The stone creature stands before him like a guardian protecting some secret place. The young man doesn't understand anything and wonders why something like this would be right here in the middle of the forest. At that moment, something falls from the sky at high speed, catching our protagonist's attention. To his surprise, a mysterious woman with red hair lands right in front of him. With a gesture, she asks what he is doing in her workshop and what he is looking for there. Her eyes glow with a red light, and she asks if he is after her research. Our hero remains crouched on the ground, just watching the woman with great caution. She then warns him to think carefully before he speaks if he truly values his own life. Our hero then remembers rumors about a heroine who commanded a one-man army golem. This woman is revealed to be the legendary creation mage named Isabel. Now, the young man is chained and kneeling, unable to believe they met in this situation. Sitting on her throne, the mage asks which faction the young man belongs to. With the tip of her staff, the woman threatens him so she won't have to ask again. Suddenly, a bright red magic circle appears beneath the young man. Our protagonist then looks at the caster and tries to explain himself. He pleads for a second and says he is not an enemy because he didn't even resist. The mage gets up from her throne, seemingly not believing a word he says. She then prepares a powerful fire spell and says the boy has a wish to depart. With that, a fireball appears over his head as she bids farewell to the nameless mage. Desperate, the young man shouts that he already said he isn't even a mage yet. The caster stops her attack for a moment and looks at him with some doubt. The woman then says with a smirk that his excuse is quite pathetic. She then places her hand on the young man's head to check something. At that moment, the mage's eyes widen as she notices something unexpected. After checking his circuits, she realizes there is no mana flowing through them. Sometime later, she says she understands his situation while they have a cup of tea. But the woman makes it very clear that she has no intention of apologizing. She explains that she just started as a teacher at the academy and is already a target for everyone. The young man is shocked to learn that Isabel is a teacher at the Magic Academy. She confirms it and says she thought it would help with her golem research. The woman takes a sip of tea with a calm and serious expression on her face. The young man then stands up and calls the mage's name to ask for something important. With a determined look, he pleads for her to teach him how to manifest mana in his body. Coldly and directly, the mage simply replies that she has no interest in weaklings and losers. She then tells him to finish his drink and leave for good. He can't accept the refusal and remembers the tragic end he had in his past life. With a new determination in his eyes, the young man won't give up on his dream so easily. He then asks the golem beside her to refill his teacup. In his thoughts, the young man knows he needs to find a way to convince the woman. With his ability to sense mana, he can see the golem's circuits up close. And in one detail, he notices that the creature's right shoulder is defective. The young man then comments that the golem is acting strangely, but the mage doesn't believe him. Suddenly, the golem short circuits and starts to shake uncontrollably. The creature then ends up spilling all the hot tea right on the mage's head. Our protagonist shouts her name, shocked by the unexpected accident. He then explains that the circuits near the golem's right shoulder are clogged. A detailed view of the creature's shoulder shows sparks and unstable energy. The mage is shocked and wonders how he knew her golem was defective. He then takes the mage's arm with a handkerchief to help her dry off. Shocked, she asks how he knew the golem was broken in that way. He explains that he saw the mana flow and that it looked very abnormal in the creature's shoulder. The young man remembers that the other mage said mana is normally invisible to the eye. Then Isabel admits that she wasn't interested in him before because he was weak and incompetent. But now with a smile, she says he has managed to spark her interest. Our protagonist smiles in relief, seeing that he has finally gotten a chance. The two then shake hands and make a deal to begin the training. The mage begins by explaining that mana is already absorbed by the body naturally. The young man then asks what he needs to do to make the mana flow through his circuits. She explains that mana only flows when a magic formula is introduced into the body. Not understanding, the young man asks what this magic formula she mentioned is. With a smile, the woman shows him a scroll with a specific spell for him. Excited, our protagonist asks what kind of magic is written on the scroll. The mage tells him to feel the power circulating in his body and visualize it in the formula. With a determined smile, the young man says he will try and that he will surely succeed. She thinks that this task usually takes a month, but she spoke as if it were easy. But with a curious look, the woman wonders if the young man's talent is real. She then thinks that maybe he can do it all in just half a month. Our hero concentrates and repeats the mage's words in his mind to begin. He thinks it's like refining his sword energy, and he just needs to focus his consciousness inward. With his eyes closed, he dives in his own consciousness to feel the energy. Inside, he sees himself in the scroll on the floor in a completely dark space. With a confident smile, he prepares to use all of his swordsman experience. He then realizes that the mana was already inside him, and the scroll glows with purple energy. His eyes open with an intense glow, and he understands that the mana was already there. With his hand on the scroll, the young man successfully activates the magic formula. It is said that learning to master magic is like learning to walk with new legs. Meanwhile, the mage watches everything from a distance with a surprised look on her face. They say that the mages at the top of the world learn to use mana faster than anyone. Suddenly, several magical fireworks explode in the sky with bright colors and lights. The woman then approaches our protagonist with a look of pure disbelief. She can't believe he managed to master the magic on his very first try. Isabel then questions him again about how he knew her golem was defective. The mage refuses to believe that just seeing the mana in the atmosphere explains everything. But whatever the reason, one thing is certain: he has an absurd talent. Our hero looks at the sky, mesmerized by the beauty of the magic he created himself. With a sparkle in his eyes, he finally understands what the true magic he dreamed of is. Suddenly, the mage calls out to him with an excited tone and a smile on her face. She slaps him on the back and says it was amazing that he activated the formula on the first try. But the young man says that's not good enough, leaving the mage confused. He explains that the magic he performed is not what he considers truly beautiful. In a memory, he recalls the radiant magic he saw when he was just a child. His boyish face showed just how amazed he was by that magical scene. He then says that to him, magic is something special, but that spell felt different. Crouching down, he points to the scroll and says that the spell just isn't right. He explains that just like with the golem, the mana flow of the formula seems to be wrong. The young man then asks for her opinion on the matter, making the woman feel awkward. With a clenched fist, the young man realizes his desire isn't just to become a mage, and he declares with certainty that he wants to cast a perfect and very beautiful magic. The mage is shocked and says that if he found something wrong, he should have rewritten the formula. Surprised by her answer, the boy quickly approaches the magic teacher. He then asks excitedly how he can draw the magic formulas correctly. Meanwhile, Scar's father walks alone down a sunlit hallway, deep in thought. His face shows a serious expression as he seems to be reflecting on something important. The defeated bullies wonder how the boy got so strong and what they will do now. At that moment, the sword master arrives, and the bully is startled to see him, asking what happened. The boys try to play it off and say, stammering, that nothing much happened. But Oscar's father insists with a stern look and asks what exactly happened. Terrified, the two young men shrink back and begin to tell the master the whole truth. One of the students tries to explain himself to the sword master, who listens with his arms crossed. Upon hearing the story, the man has an expression of complete surprise and suspicion. He finds it hard to believe that Oscar managed to defeat them all by himself. The master then tells another disciple to take care of the injuries so they don't interfere with tomorrow. The students bow in respect and agree to their master's orders. Looking up at the sky, the man says it seems the time is finally ripe for something. With a smile, he wonders if it's time to grant the sword energy. Meanwhile, in a huge library filled with books, we see our hero studying. The young man is surprised by the depth of the magic formulas, and Isabel explains everything. She says he has a knack for it and offers to lend him some of her books. With a smile, the mage says that all her knowledge is in those books. Suddenly, our protagonist simply vanishes from in front of her in an instant. He then reappears carrying a huge pile of books, leaving the mage shocked. She asks if he's going to take them all, and the young man reminds her that she said to take as many as he wanted. Isabel is left speechless by the young man's attitude and stares at him in astonishment. But before he leaves with the books, she says she needs to give him an important warning. The mage explains that now that he has mana in his circuits, he is officially a mage. With that, she warns to be very careful with how he handles sword ki. At that moment, we see our hero's father with a confident smile on his face. The woman finishes the warning, saying that if he's not careful, it will be the end of him.